What if the person who vowed to protect you, the one who held your heart for nearly 3 decades, was the one who buried you in silence? This is not just a story about a missing person. It's about love gone rotten, a carefully built facade of loyalty, and the horrifying truth that lay hidden beneath a staircase for 6 entire years. Before we begin, our hearts go out to the family of Tina Satchwell, who have endured unimaginable pain and loss throughout this tragic ordeal. May they find strength and solace in the memories they hold, and in the hope that justice will bring some measure of peace. Welcome to True Crime Diaries, where we dig beneath the headlines to uncover the disturbing, the heartbreaking, and the shocking. If you want to stay updated on stories like this, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Today's case? It's the tragic unraveling of Tina Satchwell, a woman whose smiling photographs once lit up missing person posters across Ireland, only to be discovered in the most chilling way possible. But how did it all begin? The story of Tina and Richard began like a fairy tale, at least on the surface. It was the late 1980s in Kibworth Beauchamp, a quaint English village just outside Leicester, where 19-year-old Tina moved into her grandmother's home after a rough upbringing. Next door lived Richard Satchwell, a few years older and already working as a truck driver. Their eyes met, they talked, and soon they were inseparable. In 1989, standing by the scenic lighthouse in the small Irish town of Youghal, pronounced Youghal, Richard got down on one knee and proposed. That beach town in County Cork became not just a vacation spot, but the place they would eventually call home. They married, moved to Ireland, and settled into a modest terrace house on Grattan Street. From the outside, they were the picture of stability, no children, but devoted pet parents to 2 dogs, Heidi and Ruby, and a beloved parrot named Peach. They earned a modest living selling second-hand clothes at car boot sales and relied partly on social welfare. Life was tight, but Tina always found joy in fashion. It wasn't uncommon to see her dressed in fresh outfits, often with a pop of bright color. Richard doted on her. He called her his trophy wife. He said she was out of his league. And according to neighbors, they were always together. At the doctor's, the store, the boot sales. Where you saw one, you'd often see the other. But behind those locked doors, something wasn't right. On March 24th, 2017, Richard walked into the Garda station and reported his wife missing. According to him, he hadn't seen her since the morning of March 20th, 4 days earlier. He told police they'd had a rough few weeks. Their parrot had died recently, and it hit Tina hard. He said she'd been devastated, even inconsolable. Their marriage had grown tense, but Richard thought Tina just needed space. He claimed that she packed 2 suitcases, took 26,000 euros in cash from a hidden money box in their home, and simply walked out without saying goodbye. He said she left her phone behind, maybe to avoid being tracked. And the dogs? She supposedly left those too. Richard said she knew traveling with pets would be difficult. But to the Gardaí, and to everyone who actually knew Tina, something about this didn't sit right. Tina was close to her dogs. She doted on them like children. Friends said she would never leave them behind. And that sum of 26,000 euros. No one believed the couple, constantly living on the edge financially, could have saved that much. Not even close. Richard, meanwhile, pleaded for her return. On national TV, he stood with teary eyes and a desperate voice. Tina, come home. Nobody's mad at you.
I wouldn't feel she'd go anywhere
My arms are
alone.
open.
She wasn't a person who would do that. All the family's been contacted and nobody in the family has seen or heard from her.
Tina, come home. There's nobody mad at you. My arms are open. The pets are missing you. I just can't go on not knowing. Even if you just ring the guards, let people know that you're alright. I said, I'll see you in a couple of hours, love. The last thing I said to her. A couple of hours. And now it's 3 months.
She's married, and it's just completely odd. It's just completely thrown me because it's so totally out of character for her. Well, she got up in the morning, I did my usual thing, cup of tea, slice of toast, and she asked me if I'd drop over to Dungarvan, which is only like 20 minutes drive away. And when I returned, something like 2 hours later, she just wasn't there. I found her keys on the ground as I went through the front door. So I just said she's gone out for a walk, and when she didn't come back, naturally you get a bit sickly feeling, I suppose. We'd had conversations of late, so I said, right, she's gone down to a member family in Fermoy. So I give her a couple of days. I had to go down to visit my doctor on the Friday. And then when I found out nobody had seen her, it was like everything just fell away. You know, it's just totally odd that there's been nobody say, oh, I've seen her, you know, especially with living here on the main road. My original thoughts is she got up to have a break, to get her head straight, because she's been very upset in recent months. She's had a few crises within the family over the last few years. You know, I think it took its toll, and that's why I think she got up and walked out.
His message sounded heartfelt, but behind the scenes, detectives were starting to piece together a much darker puzzle, one that would take years to complete. Once Tina was officially listed as missing, Garda E began combing through hours of CCTV footage from all over Youghal, shops, roads, bus stations, and public buildings. They hoped to catch even the faintest glimpse of Tina leaving with her supposed suitcases. But after hours of footage, nothing. Not a single sighting. No buses, no trains, no taxi pickups, no trail. It was as if she'd vanished, not into thin air, but within the walls of her own home. Investigators began to suspect that maybe Tina never left that house at all, and that suspicion would only deepen. In June 2017, about 3 months after Tina's disappearance, Garda E obtained a search warrant for the couple's home. Richard was conveniently away for work, so officers entered with a full team, more than 10 personnel, along with forensic experts. What they found inside shocked even seasoned investigators. The home was in disarray. Dog feces littered the floor. The birdcage was filled with droppings. Hundreds of articles of clothing, some brand new, others second-hand, were hanging in plastic coverings all over the house. There were piles, racks, bins. It didn't feel like a cozy home. It felt more like a hoarder's den. A forensic scientist swabbed nearly every surface, hunting for blood. In the bathroom, bedroom, under rugs, behind furniture. But after 12 grueling hours, nothing. No trace of Tina, no blood, no struggle, no answers. But they did seize 2 computers, and the digital trail they unearthed would be bizarre. Investigators discovered that Richard had been communicating for nearly 3 years with a shady organization calling itself an International Monkey Rescue. He had exchanged dozens of emails with someone named Mr. James, arranging the purchase of 2 marmoset monkeys named Terry and Telma. Western Union receipts showed regular payments to this rescue group. Investigators concluded that it was a scam. But here's where it gets disturbing. The last message Richard sent to Mr. James was dated March 20th, 2017, the exact day he claimed he last saw Tina. In it, he said, "I have nothing more to send. If the monkeys don't arrive, my wife is going to leave me." Think about that. While Tina was supposedly packing her bags and vanishing forever, Richard was begging for monkeys to save his marriage. At the same time, investigators noted that the couple's joint bank account was constantly overdrawn. Yet Richard claimed Tina walked off with 26,000 euros in cash. Where did that money come from? Did it even exist? The contradictions were mounting, and public suspicion of Richard was rising. Fast forward to July 9th, 2017, nearly 4 months after Tina vanished. Richard was doing his usual errands at the Tesco parking lot in Youghal. As he pulled in, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. 2 suitcases abandoned beside the recycling bins. He took photographs and immediately called Gardaí. Was this it? Had Tina left these behind as a sign? Or worse, were these the very bags he claimed she took with her? Investigators collected the suitcases and sent them off for forensic testing. But after days of anxious waiting, the results were a crushing disappointment. The bags had no link to Tina, just another dead end in a case full of them. A year later, in spring 2018, the case took a new turn. A tip came in via social media. A person reported seeing a man acting strangely in Castlemartyr Woods, also known as Mitchell's Woods Loop, around the time Tina vanished. The lead seemed credible enough to warrant a full-scale search, and what followed was one of the largest efforts of its kind in the region. More than 60 Gardaí, joined by 30 members of the military, descended on the area to comb through nearly 40 acres of dense woodland. They moved in grid formation, carefully flagging and bagging anything that could be linked to Tina. Scraps of clothing, trash, disturbed soil. But after days of searching, nothing. No remains, no evidence, no closure. At this point, the public narrative was shifting. People were beginning to say out loud what they'd whispered for months. Richard Satchwell knows more than he's letting on. By 2022, Tina's case had become one of Ireland's most haunting, unsolved mysteries. Yet it remains.
My house was searched without my knowledge. And the Gardaí didn't find anything to suggest anything untoward. I live on a main street, so my coming and going's a scene. So, you know, I don't know why people are being so malicious.
Are you an innocent man?
I am. I'm innocent. I'm innocent of any wrong.
Behind the scenes, however, Gardaí was still watching Richard closely. He had moved from Youghal to Cashel, County Tipperary. Neighbours said he kept to himself, quiet, withdrawn, but polite. The Gardaí, meanwhile, were quietly rebuilding the case, applying new forensic strategies and tracking digital and behavioral clues. Rumours swirled that a cold case unit was quietly preparing to relaunch the investigation. In October 2023, 6 years after Tina's disappearance, Gardaí finally got what they needed. A fresh warrant, with new information and suspicions revalidated. They returned to the couple's old home on Grattan Street in Youghal. By 2023, 6 years after Tina vanished, Gardaí secured another search warrant for the Grattan Street house. This time, it wasn't a surface check. This time, they brought cadaver dogs, ground-penetrating radar, and forensic archaeologists. And then, they found her. If you're following this case closely, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss an update. Also, drop your thoughts or theories in the comments below. We want to hear what you think happened. Human remains, skeletal, wrapped, and partially buried in the soil, were discovered in a concealed space beneath the stairs. Dental records confirmed what investigators had long feared. It was Tina Satchwell. The discovery sent shockwaves through the entire country. The house that once appeared empty, chaotic, and unremarkable had in fact been hiding a body the entire time, just steps from where Richard once claimed his wife had vanished. Within 24 hours, Garda E moved in on Richard Satchwell. He was arrested at his flat in Cashel and charged with murder. The public, who had watched this case unfold for years, erupted with grief and fury. How could he have stood on television, pleading for Tina's return, while her body was right there all along? Despite Richard's constant appearances in interviews, his behavior became harder to defend. He gave inconsistent statements, evaded certain questions, and at one point even admitted to removing CCTV cameras from their home before reporting Tina missing. Who does that? He claimed it was to protect their privacy. Garda thought otherwise. He didn't resist. He didn't cry. He didn't even look surprised. Instead, as the media frenzy erupted around the quiet town of Youghal, Richard was placed in custody and transported to Cork District Court, where he was formally charged. The community that had once sympathized with the teary-eyed husband pleading for his wife's return now watched in stunned silence as the man they once defended stood accused
glad and sad. They're glad that she was found, but they're very sad really, and there was an awful eerie feeling there around last night and today as well, I think,
I think people are happy that they found her and she can be laid to rest. And we're happy about that.
Oh, it's very sad. It's numbed the town, really. People weren't expecting anything like this, so it's very, very sad, and our sympathy goes to the family.
Leave her lie in peace now. At least her family have her back to bear.
During his post-arrest interviews, Richard gave an entirely new version of events, one that would form the basis of his defense in court. He now claimed Tina's death had been a tragic accident, an act of self-defense. He said on the morning of March 20th, 2017, he had made Tina tea and toast, then gone out to the shed to do plumbing repairs. Around 9 a.m., he returned and found her scraping at newly installed plasterboard with a chisel, still wearing only her dressing gown. When he asked what she was doing, he claimed she turned on him, chisel raised, and lunged. In the struggle, he said he used the belt of her robe to pull her back and lift her off him. In mere seconds, Tina went limp in his arms. He said he held her body for hours, sobbing, then placed her on the couch, thought about dressing her up, eventually placed her in the chest freezer in the shed, and days later, dug a shallow grave beneath the stairs, wrapped her in black plastic, and bricked over the hiding place. To many, this account felt like too little, too late. In April 2025, Richard Satchwell stood trial at the Central Criminal Court in Dublin, charged with the murder of Tina Satchwell. Prosecuting counsel Geraldine Small laid out a case that was damning. She argued that Richard's version of events, from self-defense to the burial, was riddled with inconsistencies and calculated deceit. He had motive. Tina, according to friends, had threatened to leave him. She'd said she'd wasted nearly 3 decades with a man who obsessed over her, controlled her, and manipulated her emotionally. This wasn't a man in grief, the prosecution claimed. This was a man who spent 4 days plotting a cover-up, a man who hid her body in a freezer, cemented her into a hidden staircase grave, removed surveillance footage, lied about suitcases and 26,000 euros in cash, sent out emails trying to manipulate suspicion away from himself. And when Tina's favorite cousin came by, what did he do? He offered her the very freezer where Tina's body had once been stored. By April 2025, the case had finally reached trial at Dublin's Central Criminal Court. After 8 long years, Ireland watched closely as Richard Satchwell, the man who once stood crying on TV pleading for his wife's return, now stood on trial, accused of murdering her and hiding her body under their stairs. The courtroom was tense, the jury made up of 7 women and 5 men, all listening closely as the prosecution laid out their case. Prosecuting counsel Geraldine Small did not mince words. She said the evidence pointed clearly to premeditation, that Richard's years-long story was nothing more than a web of deception, carefully spun to hide a brutal truth. She argued this wasn't self-defense, it wasn't manslaughter, it was cold-blooded, calculated murder. Why? Because Richard had motive. Tina had threatened to leave him multiple times. She'd said she wasted 28 years of her life with him, and Richard, obsessed with control, couldn't take that. Instead of letting her go, he silenced her forever. The prosecution painted a disturbing picture of what happened next. According to their timeline, Richard placed Tina's body in the chest freezer for days after killing her. Then, in an effort to permanently hide what he had done, he dug a grave beneath the staircase, wrapped her in black plastic, and built a wall of cheap plasterboard and fresh timber to seal her off, literally burying her inside the home. To make matters worse, he gave away the same freezer that held her corpse to Tina's cousin. He told friends she'd simply vanished, that maybe she was somewhere in Australia. All the while, he slept above her grave, week after week, year after year. Thanks to the expertise of forensic archaeologist Dr. McCullough, the tide began to turn. Dr. McCullough, an expert in concealed homicide, had seen this before, especially in domestic cases where the killer is a spouse. She noted structural changes in the Satchwell home that screamed cover-up. Her analysis led Gardai to re-enter the property in October 2023 with a cadaver dog. The dog alerted twice, once at the second step of the stairwell, and again under the stairs where a sloppy brick wall had been erected. It was behind that wall that investigators found a makeshift grave over 3 feet deep. Inside it, wrapped in plastic, wearing only a dressing gown and glass shards across her face, was Tina Satchwell. Dental records confirmed the worst. She'd been under that staircase for 6 years. Despite all of this, Richard pleaded not guilty. He claimed Tina attacked him with a chisel, and he accidentally strangled her with the belt of her gown while trying to protect himself. He told the court that he panicked, that he didn't know what to do. So, he hid her body out of grief, fear, and shock. The defense leaned on Lorraine Howard, Tina's estranged half-sister. Lorraine testified that Tina had a vicious temper and could be volatile. She said Richard spoiled Tina, obsessed over her, and tolerated her emotional swings. But even Lorraine, who had a complicated relationship with Tina, admitted Tina was never violent. Richard never took the stand in his own defense. After more than 5 weeks of emotional testimony, digital forensics, psychological profiling, and expert witnesses, the jury was sent to deliberate. Their decision, still pending, but the weight of public opinion was clear. To Tina's family and the broader Irish community, there was no doubt who was responsible. And the grief, it was overwhelming. Friends and neighbors who once lit candles and taped missing posters to lampposts now stood beside a cold truth. Tina never left. She had been there all along. A vigil was held on Grattan Street, outside the very home where Tina's life had ended. Flowers were placed beneath the window. Notes were scrawled on poster boards. "You deserved better, Tina. Justice will come. Rest easy now." Tina's cousin, with tears in her eyes, said, "He took her life, but he couldn't take who she was
Tina would
to
put a
us."
smile on anyone's face. She had a very bubbly personality and was a sociable person. She was always out and about with her babies Ruby and Heidi. She loved her fashion. She was always dressed so well. We will cherish the moments and all the great memories we spent with you.
In April 2025, the long-awaited trial of Richard Satchwell began at Dublin's Central Criminal Court. After years of speculation, misdirection, and public appeals, it was finally time for a jury to decide whether Tina's husband, the man who had once publicly wept for her return, was her killer all along. Prosecuting counsel Geraldine Small addressed the court with clarity and confidence. This was not a tragic accident. This was not self-defense. This was murder. Calculated, cold, and deliberate. She pointed to the years of cover-up, the deception, and Richard's refusal to report what had really happened, until the evidence quite literally surfaced beneath his feet. The defense, however, painted a different picture. A broken man in an abusive marriage, pushed beyond his limits. A man who snapped. But the evidence, it told a different story. The strongest evidence came from forensic archaeologist Dr. McCullough, who had been brought in during the renewed investigation. Her years of experience pointed to a chilling pattern. In many domestic homicide cases, the victim is buried close to home, often under newly renovated areas. Enter the stairs in the Satchwell home. Underneath those stairs was a hastily built brick wall, and beneath that, the final resting place of Tina Satchwell. Wrapped in black plastic, her body lay hidden for over 6 years, until a cadaver dog froze at the precise step, signaling the presence of human remains. The jury heard how Richard had built over the grave, concealed it, and then spun a narrative to the public and police. This was not the behavior of a man mourning a tragic loss. This was the behavior of someone trying to hide a crime. Richard never testified, but his version of events was shared. He claimed he'd found Tina scraping plasterboard with a chisel on the morning of March 20th. A confrontation followed, and she allegedly attacked him. He fell. She straddled him, with the chisel raised. In a panic, he pulled her dressing gown belt around her neck. To stop her, not to kill her, he said. He claimed she went limp in seconds. He held her for hours. Then, unsure of what to do, he placed her in a chest freezer, dug a grave under the stairs over several days, and entombed her in silence. But prosecutors asked the obvious. Why didn't he call emergency services? Why did he lie to family? Why did he offer her cousin the freezer after hiding her body inside it? These were not the actions of a grieving man. These were the actions of someone hiding the truth. The trial spanned 5 weeks. More than 50 witnesses testified, from family members and forensic experts to neighbors and digital analysts. The defense called only one witness, Tina's estranged half-sister, Lorraine, who painted Tina as temperamental, but admitted she'd never seen her become violent. On the final day, the judge reminded the jury of their task: determine whether Richard acted in self-defense, committed manslaughter, or committed premeditated murder. After hours of deliberation, the verdict was in. Guilty. Richard Satchwell was convicted of the murder of Tina Satchwell and sentenced to life imprisonment. The courtroom fell silent. Some cried. Some shook their heads. But for many,
in a way that is not true to who she was. Tina was our precious sister, cousin, auntie and daughter. Her presence in our life meant so much to us all. We as a family can never put into words the impact of her loss that has had on all of us. Tina was a kind, loving, gentle soul who loved her animals like they loved her, and that's the way we want her remembered. Today, as a family, we finally have justice for Tina. In this time, our family would like to ask for privacy to begin our healing.
in Youghal, the town that once watched Tina walk her dogs and sell clothes at the local market, candles were lit. A public vigil was held. Flowers lined Grattan Street. "We never stopped hoping she'd come back," a neighbor said. "And in a way, she finally has. Not the way we wanted, but at least now she's found." Tina was remembered not for her tragic end, but for her joy, her fashion sense, her love of animals, and the brightness she brought to quiet corners of a seaside town. This story leaves behind more than just grief. It raises hard questions. How can we spot emotional abuse when it hides behind smiles? How do we protect vulnerable people in relationships where power is imbalanced? And what could have been done differently? We may never know exactly what happened on that March morning, but we know this: Tina Satchwell didn't vanish. She was silenced, and for too long, forgotten. But not anymore. What do you think? Do you believe Richard Satchwell's version of self-defense? Or was this a calculated act masked by years of manipulation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like if you believe Tina deserves justice. Subscribe for more deep dive true crime stories. This is True Crime Diaries. And remember, behind every missing person poster is a story someone tried to erase. Don't let them succeed.